Lady Youde, many people in Hong Kong, especially the young people, have come to know of you by the name of one of our best hospitals, the Pamela Youde Nethersoul Eastern Hospital.
Yes.
Its Chinese name begins with Eastern District, followed by 4 characters, which roughly translate as Lady Youde. You see, and that much they know, and
yes.
not much else. But those who know about you, and those who know you personally, as I do, really appreciate the tremendous support and help you've given to the young people of Hong Kong through various means, not least the Sir Edward Youde Memorial Fund, where you have, until very recently, selected our most promising students to be given fellowships and scholarships.
Indeed, I consider it a great privilege to be able to do that.
Oh, I'm
yes,
glad.
Yes.
And many of them have now become leaders in the profession.
Indeed, yes.
And I'm quite sure those indebted to you would like to know more about you, so as to feel closer to you. So I have chosen this fairly cold afternoon for some heartwarming talk for their benefit, and for the benefit of your admirers, me included.
Oh, that's very kind of you, thank you.
So let's take a trip down memory lane.
Indeed.
I know the School of Oriental and African Studies
Yes.
is your alma mater.
Indeed.
It's a very good school. It's very specialized.
It is.
It has produced, as a matter of fact, heads of states, ministers, brilliant academics, diplomats, and spies.
Absolutely, yes, I suppose. I don't know about that.
now you do. It is specialized.
Yes.
It was even more so in your days.
That's
so
true,
why
yes.
SOAS? And you did Chinese as well.
Yes.
Why Chinese?
Yes. Well, why Chinese goes back a long way. Why SOAS was because at that time, when SOAS was in the 50s, it was the only degree offered in modern Chinese studies. All the other ones were classical Chinese. And as I had already been in China, I wanted to do modern Chinese. And also we were living in London, so it more or less chose me.
I see.
As to why I got interested in Chinese, it was really quite by chance, because as a child at school, we were taken in a little party to the public library and allowed to choose any book. And by chance, I pulled out a book about China, about a young man who lived up in Chongqing and worked on the Yangtze River. And I was fascinated by this strange place, where everything was so different. And I think I was about 11 at the time.
I see.
And that triggered an interest. And so after that, I tended to read books about China. And then...
Little knowing that you would become a great friend of China.
No, indeed.
Please go on.
And then, of course, during the war, there was a fund set up called the Aid to China Fund, and a great deal of publicity about China and how the Chinese people were defending freedom and the Sino-Japanese War, of course. And so then, of course, that triggered my interest again, and I read a little bit more. And in the end, decided I would like to learn Chinese. So it was really quite by chance. But I was very fortunate it worked so well.
I presume you did well.
Reasonably, yes. In fact...
yes. After that,
Yes.
life became even more interesting. You got to crisscross China.
Yes, indeed, because I met my husband in Nanjing in 1949. And, of course, he was a Chinese specialist, as you know. And so our life took us into China in the British Embassy then. And so we were very lucky at a time when it was very difficult to visit China and even more difficult to travel in China.
Yes.
We were there and able to take advantage of the opportunities came up. Every so often there would be a possibility of going somewhere.
Right.
And if my husband was busy in the office and I had enough Chinese to be able to go off on my own.
To travel.
Yes, yes.
Then in that case, you must have interesting stories to tell. Any anecdotes?
Well, yes, I I think I went to probably some of the places that weren't open. Very little of China was open then, and in Beijing, in order to gain permission to visit anything, you had to have a letter from the ministry concerned.
I see.
And as you know, with bureaucracy in any government, I think communist governments possibly as well, you had to apply and get permission. And once or twice we came to a beautiful old temple where occupied perhaps by a railway school or something like that, where we hadn't had permission to go. So fortunately, they said, well, where is your letter of introduction? And my husband was able to go, we were able to go around the corner and quickly write a letter of introduction for ourselves.
He wrote one himself
exactly,
for you.
For me. And so we were both able to go. So we had some amusing times then. And of course, once in, we were most welcome. But in those days, of course, those beautiful buildings were in their original state. And so some of them not very well looked after. Some of them it's beautiful because they had never been restored. Still the old style was there. And so since then, of course, they've become more easily accessible.
Oh, yes, yes.
But at that time, it was a great adventure to go to see them.
In fact, it was a privilege, was it
Yes,
not?
it was, indeed, a great privilege.
But now, of course, more and more people are going to these places.
Yes, yes.
We had better think of ways and means to protect these heritage sites.
Absolutely, yes. Well, one thing that I remember very well is when we were able to go to Datung and to go to the Yungang Caves in the very early days, and just after the Counter-Revolution. And the curator there, they were not open to the public, they were in a sad state. And he said it was purely due to the help of Premier Zhou Enlai that these wonderful sculptures have been preserved. And so they're very grateful to him. And of course, he was instrumental in restoring all those wonderful places.
Yes.
So a great benefactor of the
You've
art.
seen more of China than most of us. You've
in those
been
early
to
days.
in
yes,
those, especially those early days.
Yes, in those early days.
Which is very interesting.
It is, yes.
And you still go there from time to time?
I do, yes. The changes are amazing now. Yes, and I've been going recently, as you know, to Hangzhou because my granddaughters have been at Zhejiang University, so had an opportunity to go to visit them there.
Now she's returned home.
Yes, four of them I have been there. So I've had an opportunity to go continuously for 4 years.
And she must speak very good Putonghua.
I think, well, after 6 months, of course, they speak average.
Yes,
but
young
very
people learn
young
quickly.
People learn quickly. It's quite true, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Let's talk about the fund.
Yes.
The fund was founded in 1987.
That's right, yes.
In memory of Sir Edward.
Yes.
And since its inception, you have been a member of its board of trustees.
That's right.
And the council.
Yes, absolutely.
Over the past 29 years or so, you have seen board chairmen and members and council chairmen and members come and go.
Indeed, yes.
You have watched some of the scholarship recipients succeed. And I'm sure you still cherish fond memories of many people and events involved. Can you share some of them with us?
Yes, indeed. Well, our first awardees, we had very few at that time for overseas studies. Of course, we've always had many more local awards, but the young people who were awarded the overseas, one of them was Ng Mi Kam, who went to Los Angeles, and we had one other scholar in America. So we decided, as we only had 2 overseas scholars at that time, that I would come to Hong Kong via the United States and call in on them.
I see.
And so I called in to see Mi Kam in Los Angeles, and we had a very nice time going around. She showed me all around Los Angeles. And
nice.
I met a very nice young man who was squiring her with a car. And now, of course, she, from having been a young student there, she's a professor at Chinese University of Hong Kong. Yes, so she's now Professor Mi Kam. Yes, and that young man is her husband. It's very nice.
Who may not be that young after all now.
No, now they have grown-up children, of course.
What about those instrumental in the setting up of the fund?
Yes, well, of course, our great benefactor and one of the leading inspirations for the fund was Dr. Li Guowai, who was a great friend of Sir Edward, of course, and was our first chairman of the board, and who so carefully organised our finances that we've always had a good amount of money to spend on the students.
True.
Yes, we were most fortunate.
He worked very hard raising funds as well.
Yes, indeed.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he did.
And
many other friends at that time.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
It's very nice of him.
Yes, and of course, Dr. Daniel Jere, as he was then, was on the Executive Council with Sir Edward, and a great benefactor too to the fund.
I see,
a great friend of the fund.
Nice, yes. And recently we had a great donor in the person of
Mr.
Sanford Yong.
Yes, recently, and coming right up to the present, until a few years ago, sadly, we lost him last year. Yes, and Mr. Sanford Yong has been a great inspiration to our young people, to the Alumni Fund, and to all of us, because of his generosity and his interest in what we were doing.
You have impressed and moved our young people more than you realize. Me Cam, of course, being one. I would suppose there are still others who are in close touch with you.
Indeed, yes, several I've been able to keep in touch
How
with
are these people doing?
Oh, most of them are doing very well. I mean, there was Peter Wong, who is now in the Attorney General's office, I believe, and a young man recently I had a letter from who said that he won't, he's inspiration. He was asked actually in his interview for the scholarship what he would like to do in 10 years' time, and he told us, and I had a letter from him this Christmas to say he's doing it now.
He is doing
he's
it.
attained his ambition, so that was very nice. And they're just examples of many of the scholars.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You must have many good things to say about the youth scholars.
They've done such a lot of good work in trying to give back to Hong Kong something of what they've received from the fund, and the graduates of the early years in the 90s, they decided they would set up an alumni association called the Youde Scholars. And from very small beginnings in those days, just a few people getting together in a room or having dinner together, they've grown into a really impressive organisation today. They've done very good work with young people in a program called Youth Makes a Difference, encouraging young people to think of how they can make a difference to helping people in their own environment. And I think they're really putting back into society a great deal of what they've received themselves. So this is one of the many programs, and they also, of course, are a sort of central point for all returned scholars and graduates from the Youde scheme to meet together and exchange ideas and find out how they can help each other. So I think this is really, like all alumni associations, a very good idea, and I think that the Youde scholars are particularly active and making their presence felt in Hong Kong. And I'm really delighted to see that, from growing from such very small beginnings to a very big organisation now.
Would you like to say a few words of encouragement to our young people?
Yes, indeed I would. Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate everyone who succeeded in their examinations this year. And even more importantly, I think, I'd like to say to those who haven't succeeded in what they really wanted, not to give up, but to keep on trying, because very often at the second time round, you do even better than you thought, or new opportunities open up that you'd never thought of. So the important thing is, however hard it seems at the moment, don't give up, keep trying, and something good will come out of it, I'm sure.
Absolutely uplifting. Thank you, my lady.
Not at all. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a great pleasure.